I'm making this video right now to publicly call out Richard Schuler, aka Richard Hart. He's a big name in cryptocurrency right now. He supposedly developed the Hex token and a new network that's still waiting to be launched called the Pulsechain Network that comes with a couple of tokens attached to it. I think that there's another reason that not a lot of people know about that might, I don't know for sure, but might be the real reason why Richard Hart has yet to release the Pulsechain Network. At the risk of sounding highly narcissistic, I think I might have something to do with it. I've been investigating and tracking a network of child abusers for about 2 years now. Just about coming up, probably within a few days. They know about me. They've dropped hints to me that they're keeping tabs on me. Unfortunately, I know or knew a couple of people that I highly suspect are in this network, and I contacted them, well, one of them, to try to get more information. And they rightly guessed that I was on to them, and through certain avenues that I'll be making other videos about, and have made other videos about already, it became clear to me that these people were involved, and that they were going to my website that typically has no traffic on it, so on and so forth. The way I spotted these people, the first one I ever spotted was a content creator operating in LA, Hosea Jan Frank. He was the president of BuzzFeed Motion Pictures for a while. He's the first one I spotted. I have years of formal training, as well as my own training and education in the visual arts and breaking down visual images and symbols for their layered meanings. I also have no small amount, over 2 decades worth of my own personal interest in occult symbolism and in psychology and cult mentality. I've spent countless, couldn't tell you how many hours, days, years pondering over certain occult symbols, trying to figure out what they meant, and reading whatever amount of history I could find on them. I eventually came to realize that a lot of these symbols are very much connected with concepts that have to do with child abuse, inappropriate sexual relationships with children, hatred of women, hatred of mothers. It was that background knowledge and education that led me to recognize those same symbols, combinations of those symbols being used or cleverly referenced, alluded to in Zay Frank's videos. That's how I first spotted him. And from there, I branched out my search and realized that I was dealing with a network. And that this was a network likely of child abusers. As I began investigating them more and doing more and more research, I started to get a good sense of the concepts in a belief system that they seem to have that sort of supports their unhealthy predilections. And the concepts have symbols that relay these ideas to others. This is very easy to understand. If, for example, you're a Christian, you might typically wear a gold cross around your neck or a fish of some sort. Those are symbols for Christianity, for Christ, and behind those symbols are a world of stories, lessons, concepts, beliefs. It's the exact same thing. It's just that this network uses different symbols. Things like a hummingbird sipping at a sunflower. Things that could look benign or have a innocent seeming sugar-coated interpretation for the public, but they also have a much darker meaning to them. I have been and will continue to release videos discussing the belief system that these people seem to have, discussing the meanings in the concepts and how they relate to child abuse. I one day realized that it would be a lot easier to pursue these people and try to expose them with my investigative journalism if I were, independently wealthy and didn't have to worry about working a 9-to-5 to eat. So I began investing what little money I had, and I focused somewhat on cryptocurrencies. This is what led me to discover the Hex token and Richard Hart and that entire community. At first, admittedly, I didn't notice it. I watched a few videos with Richard Hart. I barely paid attention too much. I barely looked at them. I would listen to videos and do other stuff also, clean up. I got in on the Hex token, not during the sacrifice phase, unfortunately, but early enough that I managed to turn $200 into $25,000. So I guess thanks for that, Richard. I did, however, get in on the Pulsechain Network token during the sacrifice phase. Which means I'm sitting on millions of tokens right now. And very likely within hours, if not days, of the network being launched, I would be a millionaire. The token wouldn't even have to go up to 25 cents for me to be a millionaire. It wasn't until, I'm trying to think if it was before or after. No, it was before or after I heard about the Pulsechain. If it was when I still only knew about Hex, and before I checked back in to see if he had any other projects, I think that's when I realized. It wasn't until I was watching more of his videos, when I'd already invested in Pulsechain, that I saw the symbols being referenced and alluded to. Things like that golden candelabra with the angel. It looks like it held 10 candles. Things like those little stuffed animals he had stuck to his shirt. The brands he flashes around, combined with certain things like the stuffed bear animal behind him, along with the stuffed duck. There are a lot. Also, just the logos. The logos, I've already begun writing, putting together a big write-up, breaking down the logos he uses for his cryptocurrencies and crypto network. They say a lot. They're very much connected with mythological figures like Kronos. Kronos from Greek myth, Zeus's father. They're connected with the idea of Saturn and death, but also with child abuse, and I will get into that. Well, Kronos used to eat his own children alive in the stories. I think, again, not trying to sound too narcissistic, guys, I do think because these people are keeping tabs on me, they've made it clear that they're keeping tabs on me. I think that they know, sussed out, that I had been investing in cryptocurrencies, and that I had a substantial amount of Pulsechain tokens. I think there's a very good chance that Richard Schuller, aka Richard Hart, will either never release that network now, find some way to tank it, or just do a rug pull and disappear, and you guys will never find him. Or that they're waiting for, or hoping for, or attempting to harm me in some way. Hoping that something will, or hoping that, I don't know, something will happen to me, or they're attempting to get something to happen to me. And then the network will be launched. I would be very shocked if that network launched while I was alive and able to cash in my tokens. He was supposed, or implied to people in a tricky manner. Never outright said it. That's a telltale sign, by the way, I'm noticing with these people. They seem to have a kind of code, as if they're not allowed to lie, but they still mislead people by telling the truth. And they just phrase it and say it in certain ways so that it sounds like the truth, but it's misleading. I think anybody just has to go back and look at how Richard Hart sort of announced that the network could be released in mid-May of 2022. Really look at the language he uses to see what I'm talking about. He didn't directly say that it would be released mid-March. He just strongly implied it by using a clever combination of words. The cleverest of personality disordered people, psychopaths and sociopaths, the more clever of them, they love using this method to lie. It's lying by telling the truth. It's telling the truth in a misleading manner. I've spotted other members of this network doing the same thing on YouTube. I call them chaos agents. I think that they worship chaos. I think that they go out of their way to seed chaos in society. I think they do this for a few reasons. I think that exploring viscerally the monster deep down inside of themselves is a big part of their belief system and their network. And the worst kind of monster you could be is one that abuses children, and specifically your own children. And I do think that they engage in that as well, if they have children. If they don't, I think that they buy them. by his own admission, he is buddies with Tony Robbins. And even said in one of his videos that Tony Robbins has no besmirchment on his name. All one needs to do is dig a little to find that Tony Robbins does in fact have allegations against him already. That he was inappropriate with an underage girl. And that he bullies journalists out of talking about it. Just wondering if Richard Hart, did you get up to doing any weird stuff with your, I don't know, your butt buddy, Tony Robbins, out on his private island? Did you do any weird stuff with kids? Did you do anything sexual with children, with minors? Remember how Epstein would assault kids on his island? I do think Epstein was a part of this network. I think that we're talking about a lot of high rollers here. And again, they've made it clear that they're keeping tabs on me. My name is Katie Elizabeth Phillips, also known as Kat Phillips, Katie. So Katie with a K. I grew up at the Jersey Shore, Cape May, New Jersey. I was born October 4th, 1984, in Somers Point, New Jersey, at 1:23 a.m. Please do try to keep an eye out for me, because if you hear I'm dead or missing, then maybe the network will launch. Otherwise, I think that he might take aside the big investors who invested millions, who probably many of them, if not all, are also in his little network. And they were just tipped off to this being a sure thing project that they could make a lot of money off of. I think that all it takes is for him to take those heavy hitters aside and explain to them whatever he has to. This project isn't going to work out for whatever reason, but don't worry, I'll put you onto another one that will make you just as much money. And then really, he just has to rug pull it and disappear to some corner of the world. And most of the general community who invested in that network won't be able to do anything about it. You know that. You know that. Most of you, for example, who might make, I don't know, around $1,000 every couple weeks, what are you going to do about it if he rug pulls this whole thing and disappears? You don't have the resources to have him tracked down and brought to justice. The heavy hitters might have been able to pay people to track him down and find him and bring him in to be tried in a court of law, but not the rest of us. And that's a lot of people, I believe, who invested in that network that don't have the resources to track him down if he F's us over. And the millionaires, when you're a mega millionaire, if you got $500 million, investing $1 million is nothing. When you make about $1,000 every couple weeks, investing $500 is a big deal. Relatively, you invested way more. You had a lot more to lose. He doesn't care about that. These people don't have a conscience. They are their own masterpieces. They love themselves, if they love anything. They want to be worshipped and idolized. They don't want to be told what to do ever. They want to live a life of total freedom. But that means living a life that's free of morals and ethics. So they fight and strive for power and dominance and whatever will give them that, which is quite often money. And then I think when they get up to a certain level of success, they're invited into the club. If it's deemed that they might be amenable to what the club gets up to. I've sat down and done some rough calculations when I first started trying to figure this network out, just to see the kinds of numbers I might be coming up against. Taking a lot into consideration, it's likely that we're looking at a network that has at least roughly around 6 to 7 million members, which is not a lot when you consider that there are at least 6 million Freemasons on the books worldwide. And there's a lot of other related orders that likely have almost as many. And in this day and age, with the internet, cell phones, it's easier now than ever to network and be in contact with people on the opposite end of the earth. It's not just benefiting the general public or the good guys, it's also benefiting the bad guys. Of course, they're using this to their advantage too, and probably far more efficiently than the general public uses it. Apologize, my cat's in the background with the glowing red eye. I really do think that they can't have me be a millionaire. They know that. They know that I'm not the kind of person who will waste my life sitting around on a beach, sipping Mai Tais and lounging in a mansion somewhere on the Mediterranean if I get millions of dollars. They know that. I'm the kind of, especially because, again, one of them I went to school with, the other one was a teacher at that school. They know I'm the kind of person, if I get millions of dollars, I will very likely still live pretty simply and dedicate my time and a good substantial portion of that money to shutting them down and getting them thrown into prison, because I believe in living a meaningful life. Not a big party life. It's not meant to be Ferris Bueller's Day Off, guys. These people communicate with images, because they're not going to wear signs on their forehead that just flat out says, hey, I rape kids. They're not going to do that. They're going to be tricky, of course. And they're not dumb, ugly trolls living under bridges. They're well educated. They're well resourced. They're likely of higher intelligence than the general population. I know, because I was educated with some of them. I went to the same kinds of schools they went to, prep schools and such. I got in on an academic scholarship. But I can't, as much as I had plenty of other plans for my life, I can't in good conscience maintain my sense of my own humanity and just pretend I don't know that this is happening and just get back to business as usual doing me. I can't do that. I've sacrificed no small amount of my life and my opportunities and things I wanted for myself so that I could gather as much information on these people as possible. And it seems like the work is never ending. But I have made substantial connections between a lot of these people. The symbols that they're using, and connections with their history and how they've been used. A lot of them have been used in the past by groups, cults that engaged. We know for certain, it's historically written down in the history books, that they engaged in child abuse. I apologize. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I wanted to say in this video before I leave it off. I think that you guys are going to be very disappointed by this. Hexagons and Pulsechain people. I think he's going to disappoint you one way or another. I think that he's either going to rug pull this whole thing, or I think that at best case scenario is that he does release a network while I'm alive and capable of cashing in on the tokens. But then you find within a year or two of that he's being arrested and thrown into prison for abusing children. If I were you guys, I would stop pushing this token. Stop wasting your time. You're just making him richer. And I guarantee you he is not using that money. He's using that money for things that you, if you have any kind of conscience or empathy or compassion, you absolutely would not approve of. Now, that said, we're not going to just be facing the 6 million or so members. I would also be coming up against a small army of people who would be willing to help them. Family members, friends, business partners. Plenty of people out there who won't necessarily be in the network and won't necessarily actively want to engage in such things with children. But they could be just as narcissistic and just as cold and only interested in their bottom dollar, and therefore will happily help their, business partner, let's say, who's in the network, and look the other way about what they do to kids, as long as they are getting some kind of benefit from that. By the way, Richie Rich, why are you dressed like a clown? Billions of dollars doesn't buy taste, I guess. You look like a clown. Yeah, you also look like the Blue Fairy came down and turned the Pillsbury Doughboy into a real boy. Just thought I'd throw that one out there. So yeah, I'm officially calling him out. And I'm daring him. I'm double daring him. Release the network, you little puss. If you can't win without cheating, manipulating, without pushing me down, if you can't win without pushing me down, then you're pathetic. You're a worm. And if your cryptocurrency is really so great, if your network is really so great, then it should stand the test of time. You should be able to release it right now. You shouldn't have to wait for the bottom of the bear market or whatever. If it's so great, it'll survive. And it will do better than survive. It'll thrive. If it's so great. But it likely isn't. So you guys keep that in mind too. Keep that in mind. Those who have already gone into the sacrifice phase, we stand to get plenty of money, no matter when he releases it. Why wait anymore just to get what? Another 500,000, another million, maybe another 10 million. But at that point, when you're up into the mega millions, like, come on, doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. Those of us got in the sacrifice phase, we should have enough tokens. We'll all come out of it millionaires once he releases that network. Millionaires, mega millionaires, maybe even billionaires. I'd wager that most of us would rather him just release it sooner rather than later. And we'll forego that extra million or something. Because we can always take the bulk millions we've already made and just turn it into more money. Because we're savvy little investors, aren't we? Otherwise, we wouldn't have been in on the sacrifice phase to begin with. Calling you out, Richard Schuller. Calling you out for being a little pussy. A coward. Otherwise, that network would have been released by now. The coding ought to be done. You implied it would be released in mid-May of 2022. It's already January of 2023. You gave a bunch of excuses that the coding needed to be redone, and then you said you hired, I believe it was, roughly quoting, or you strongly implied, you hired like 14 developers, something around there, and then split them up into 2 teams and had them competing against one another to get it done faster and better. Well, then it's done. By now, it should be done. Any coding should be done, assuming there was even a problem with coding to begin with. That network should absolutely be 100% ready to launch by now, if there even is a network. Perhaps there's some huge flaw that he didn't foresee, that he hasn't been able to work out, and the network is shit. He's trying desperately to buy time, fix it or something, and it's not working out. I don't know. Again, I'm really not trying to be narcissistic here or self-centered, but I do have to consider all the options, and that does seem to be a reasonable option to consider when you take into account the fact that he is on a list of my suspects. He's on a list of suspects that I'm investigating for child abuse. And again, they would have profiled me by now and known that I'm the kind of person who's not going to take a payoff or win or inherit or whatever millions of dollars and then just go party and go shopping. I would take a substantial amount of it, reinvest, make myself self-sustainable, and then I would get down to work getting these creatures thrown into prison cells. And hire myself a private investigator and a research assistant to help do a lot of the legwork. But if I'm wrong, Richie Rich, prove me wrong. Release the network. And just so we can make sure I'm actually alive and able to cash in on it, why don't you release it today? Tomorrow? Let's give it, what? Fine, we can give it, 48 hours, I guess, so you can announce it, get people ready. There's no reason why it shouldn't be released by the end of this week. Other than, really, guys, really think about it. If he really wanted to impress us, he would release it before the bottom of the bear market and show us, look, see? I can release it whenever the F I want. I can release at the worst moment in the market and it will still survive. And not only that, it will thrive. If he really wanted to impress us. But that's not what he's doing. He's buying time. I think he's hoping that they're going to be successful at hurting me or something. I've tried to tailor my life over the last 2 years to keep myself mobile and make it hard for them to get at me, although there have been chances, I'm pretty sure. So I just don't know. It's possible that just like they seem to have some kind of code where it seems like they're not allowed to lie, but they can mislead by telling the truth in a weird way, in a devious way. It's possible that a part of whatever that code is says that they can't hurt me for whatever reason. Maybe if you are attentive enough to spot them, maybe, I don't know, amongst them you get some kind of mad props. I have no clue. Or maybe they're just waiting for a specific date. They are into specific dates that they think are special. They are into numbers and numerology. So it might just be I'm slotted to be taken out on a certain day, and he's just waiting for that to come and go. I don't know. Or maybe I am managing to just miss getting caught for 2 years. I don't know. All I know is that these people, there is a group of people I've been investigating for 2 years that I am about 99.9% sure are engaging in child abuse and child trafficking. I reserve that last little 0.1% or whatever, because I have not actually seen any of them. As far as I can recall, consciously or know of or remember, I have not actually witnessed any of them abusing children, but I just see a lot in the content that they put out there, videos they create, little symbols and signs in the background that they flash, or on their clothes and they flash. Sometimes also certain color combinations, like blue over red. I haven't seen a lot of that with Richard, but I've seen a lot of that with others. Although, truth be told, I'm not paying attention to a lot of his videos recently. I did get a lot of them recorded, a good amount of them recorded, for my archives and for evidence. There are a few I'm going to be breaking down for the symbols that he's flashing and what they mean, in regards to the cult and how they connect to child abuse, so on and so forth. It's getting late. I apologize. I am getting sleepy. I've been driving for a while. I'm worn out. I am trying to get this put together and out there as soon as possible. I've been meaning to get it out there for weeks now, but life, It'd be nice if I had a lot more money to throw at the problems that are being thrown at me all the time. I seem to be inundated with since I started investigating these people. My life has grown significantly harder, and it seems to be just like, yeah, I could admit that, sure, maybe a good portion of it's my fault. But nobody's that unlucky and nobody's that stupid. I have fallen on some really unfortunate, unlucky things in the last 2 years. That a few of them seem like, this doesn't feel like it's just bad luck. And I'm not the only person to have spotted these people operating. There are a few others that have noticed them as well. A lot of those people have either gone missing or turned up dead. One of them was Tracy Twyman, Tracy Twyman. Tracy Twyman of Oregon. At least that's where she was last living. She was a well-educated, white, middle-class American woman with a young son. She was a historian, and she specifically focused on the history of symbols and symbols in cults, and symbols used by certain blood lineages going back through history. She wrote about 8 or 9 books on these subjects. Please do look her up, and she has videos on YouTube of her speaking in podcasts about stumbling upon this network, noticing them operating on YouTube one day, gathering information on them. She took it to the FBI. Per her own words in one of the YouTube videos, per her own words, she said it was as if the FBI already knew what she was talking about, and they didn't care. They wouldn't even let her through the door. They refused to take any of the information, research that she had done on this group of people, and turned her away quite coldly. And not long after that, she started getting hacked. Her computer, her website. She started getting death threats. For a while, she cooled off her investigations. But then she picked back up because I'm sure, just like myself, her conscience couldn't let her sleep at night and just pretend like she didn't know this was going on out there. So, right around, I think it was 2017, 2018, Isaac Cappy was a B-lister celebrity. He was like, you know, a side character in like the Thor movie, for example. He came out publicly and started talking about a lot of child abuse going on in Hollywood, and said he was going to blow the lid off of it. Tracy Twyman actually interviewed him because she was determined to stop these people, and she, I think, rightly guessed that the network, the people she had sussed out, uncovered, who were clearly selling children online through YouTube, she'd sussed out that they were likely connected with this group that Isaac Cappy was talking about operating in Hollywood. She interviewed Isaac Cappy, and shortly after that, Isaac Cappy supposedly forced himself off of a bridge. And only about a month after Isaac Cappy died, Tracy Twyman was found dangling from the rafters in her garage. Which, by the way, is not how women typically choose to kill themselves if they have any other options that are less violent. It does not jive with the psychology of females, women, to kill themselves so violently unless it is their only option. She was a white, middle-class, suburban mother. She might have been struggling financially to some degree, but she could have still easily gotten her hands on some pills that would have done the trick, you know? Women typically, if they have their druthers and they've decided to commit suicide, will choose the most non-violent, non-painful method, which is typically overdosing on some kind of substance like sleeping pills or opiates, and then laying down in a very safe feeling, comfortable place, which is usually in their beds, in their bedroom, where they're surrounded by their comforters and their pillows, and they feel safe. And then they just go to sleep and they don't wake up. That's typically how women kill themselves if they have any kind of option or choice in the matter. They certainly do not go for the option of hanging themselves from the rafters in a dirty, dingy garage and risking not even dying outright, but strangling to death. And mothers with young sons who have even a shred of conscientiousness, and this woman absolutely was a conscientious woman. Mothers who decide for whatever reason to commit suicide don't typically do it in a manner where they will risk leaving behind such a gruesome scene for their son to possibly find. They would much sooner choose to leave behind a scene where they appear to be asleep, and the kid can't wake them up. And then they'll go to get a parent, another adult, and the adult will deal with it. It's a lot more shocking and gruesome if a kid walks into the garage and finds their mother dangling there. She was a smart woman and a conscientious woman, and even if she had made up her mind to kill herself, she would never have done it in a method like that would risk her son finding her like that. She never would have. And I don't think she ever would have chosen to kill herself to begin with and essentially orphan her son, because his father was already deceased. In the same manner, by the way, he was found hanged too. Or hanging. I believe both of their deaths were deemed suicides. Sounds to me like whoever made that call, at least on Tracy Twyman's part, whoever made that call doesn't know a lick about female psychology. So yeah, I'm not the only person to have spotted this. It's just that there are very few of us, and even fewer seem to have the bravery to do anything about it. I could really use some help from people, in stopping these guys. If anybody wants to pitch in with some research investigations of their own into these people. I've spotted Zay Frank, Chris Thompson of Vampire Weekend. He's the kid I went to school with. Our art teacher at that school, Michael Paul Maxwell, based out of New York. Big fancy artist these days. Decorates Trump resorts and such. And then, of course, Richard Schuler, aka Richard Hart, is also on my suspects list, along with Tony Robbins. Along with Isaac Brock of Modest Mouse. Look at the symbols they use. Logos, things in the backgrounds, videos they make, images on the covers of their albums and band posters, lyrics in the songs. See if you can't find some similarities. I first noticed that Zay Frank's rubber duck logo was meant to be an Abrasax, A-B. R-A-S-A-X, sometimes spelled A-B-R-A-X-A-S. That's a very old symbol in the esoteric community. It's been used by Gnostic cults. I've determined that these people like to worship the setting sun over water, because the sun, when it touches the water, appears to, is roughly the same symbol, or stands for a lot of the same things that an Abrasax would stand for. By the way, the Abrasax is also, quite often has been, considered to be synonymous with the devil. Yaldabaoth, the fallen sun, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the king of all lies and narcissism. A giant toddler throwing a temper tantrum. The ego maniac of whatever pantheon. There are lots of different versions of this dude that pops up in all kinds of different religions and belief systems, mythologies. Kronos is one version. Shiva is another version. Loki, from Nordic myth. In Native American stories, he quite often takes the form of the coyote or the fox. Tricky, mischievous, horn dogs. There's an element of hatred of mom to it too. A wish to break free of mother's control. I will be getting more into the psychology behind that, sort of Norman Bates psychology, with other videos. This is almost an hour long, and I did not mean for it to be so long. But there's so much information I have to get out there. I do need to break it up into more videos, but yeah, sorry if I'm getting a bit off topic, but we are talking about a branched out spiderweb kind of network and a lot of information to do with how they communicate. But yeah, the point of this video ultimately is for the hexagons out there in the Pulsechain community, guys. Please stop pushing this cryptocurrency. I think any of you out there with a conscience will regret it one way or another. Even if it's just, well, I made a bunch of money, but I certainly do regret that I made a bunch of money by furthering the interests of a dude who was abusing children. And I guess I should end it there. I'm not really sure. I mean, there's so much else I could say, but I don't want to throw too much at you guys. Like I said, calling Richard Hart out. He should absolutely have no problem releasing that network by the end of the week, really. Please do keep an eye out. Make sure I'm still alive when it happens. And they haven't assassinated me or I haven't gone missing. If you have to, if you need to, I shouldn't be hard to find on Facebook. I have my own artist's portfolio website. All kinds of ways you could track me down and contact me. Probably best to contact me over Facebook. Don't try through my website. I don't think I check that email anymore, but yeah, if you hear that the Pulsechain Network is launching and you want to double check that I'm alive and haven't disappeared or something, go ahead and ask me over Facebook. Hey, you alive? Because Pulsechain's launching, and I'll let you know. I'll get back to you. I'll say alive, and then I might do like an automated response or something if enough people start bothering me with the question, and then I'll go try to cash in my crypto if I didn't already hear that the network was launching. And then I will get down to business getting their asses thrown in prison. Again, they know that. They can't have me being a millionaire. I think that they're trying very hard to sidestep that happening. All I really need is time. I have the intelligence, I have the skill, I have the background education to pick apart what they're doing and to make my case and make it well enough to get them exposed and get them into trouble. The only thing I really don't have is enough time to do it. Because I gotta eat, which means I gotta work a rat race job that drains me, and that means I have little to no free time that I feel like I can even work on this stuff, especially not recently, because it's just been a series of unfortunate events. That's what my life's been for a little while now. There's no reason the network shouldn't be launched by now. If he wanted to prove to us that it's a quality token and a quality network, he should absolutely be releasing it now, before the bottom of the bear market. He's supposedly a billionaire, so why should he care about getting that extra million or something? And the top heavy hitters, the heavy rollers, you don't think that they would maybe forego another, like $1 million or something, so they could at least cash in now? We've been waiting long enough. We really have. And I know for sure that everyone else who got in on this network that's still working those 9-to-5 jobs will be more than happy to have the network released sooner rather than later. And even they might be like, you know what? I can do, I don't know, 5 million and not 6 million, so long as I get the 5 million now, instead of waiting for till God knows how long for the 6 million. You know what I'm saying? Again, we're savvy investors. We can turn the 5 million into another 100 million or something, you know? We don't have to wait any longer for that extra mil to come in because Richard released it at just the right time in the market. We don't need to wait for that. If it's a quality token, if it's a quality network, it'll stand the test of time. It'll survive the bear market. He needs to release it now and stop being a coward. If that is, in fact, why it's being delayed, if it has anything to do with me, y'all need to stop being pussies. You don't deserve to win. If you can't win without pushing down your competition, if you can't just win by your own merit, if you're not fast enough, then you don't deserve the win. But I don't think that they have any real sense of good sportsmanship, let's say. I think all they care about is, it doesn't matter how I won, I won. You guys could have me on a slab and skinning me alive, and I'll still be the winner. You're bigger losers than me any day of the week. You're cowards. That makes you the bigger losers every step of the way. Just in case I forgot to mention it earlier in the video, I just want to say it again, or for the first time. Richard, you look like a clown. Stop wearing more jewelry than my aunt wears. You're prettier than my nieces. And you look like the blue fairy came down and turned the Pillsbury Doughboy into a real boy. And then he bedazzled himself with gold chains and flashy clown clothing. Jeez, could you wear any shittier clothes? It's just hideous. I don't care that it's some kind of popular brand. It's hideous. Anyway, by the way, he probably isn't a billionaire. At least the way these people work, I suspect, is that on paper, they probably don't own anything. They probably own less than you or I on paper. Because it's all probably tied up in like LLC companies, offshore companies and stuff that it's like, it's technically it's owned by the companies, but the companies are run by these people. You know, like, so on paper, technically, these people actually don't have anything. That's what I suspect. But we'll see. Release the network, Richie Rich. Stop being a puss. Good night.